She called the cops and screamed, "He's trespassing on HOA property!" while I was standing on my own front lawn. I couldn't believe it. The ink on my new private property sign hadn't even dried when that woman, the one they all call Karen, marched across the street, phone already in her hand. She pointed at me like she was leading some military operation. "You can't post that! This land belongs to the HOA!" I laughed a little, thinking she was joking. "Ma'am, I bought this land last year. You can check the county record." But her eyes burned with that weird sense of power. "We'll see about that," she said. And before I could answer, she was already talking to 911, telling them I was an intruder on her neighborhood property. I just stood there, watching her, trying to stay calm. I'd dealt with worse before, especially in the Army, but something about her confidence made me curious. It was like she really believed she owned everything she could see. Minutes later, 2 squad cars rolled up. The officers stepped out cautiously, hands on their belts. One of them asked, "Sir, do you live here?" Karen jumped in before I could say a word. "No, he doesn't. He moved in last month without HOA approval. He's defacing community land." The younger cop turned to me. "Sir, do you have proof this property belongs to you?" I nodded slowly, pulled my phone out, and showed them the deed, with my name, my signature, and the exact address. The officer looked at it, then back at Karen. Her face twisted, but she didn't back down. "That can't be right! That's HOA-managed ground! He's lying!" The officer sighed. "Ma'am, this document looks valid." But Karen leaned closer to him and whispered something I couldn't hear. The officer's face changed. "Sir, can you step aside for a moment?" he asked. That's when it hit me that she wasn't just an angry neighbor. She had connections. And the way the cop looked at me told me this wasn't going to be a normal visit. Something was off, and I was about to find out just how far Karen would go to make me disappear from my own property.
I took a slow breath, keeping my hands visible while the officers walked around my yard. Karen followed right behind them like she was leading the inspection herself. "See? He even changed the fence line. That post used to be HOA boundary," she said, waving her hand dramatically. One of the officers looked unsure. "Ma'am, we'll handle it," he said, but she didn't stop. "No, you don't understand. This man moved that sign and is trying to steal HOA land." I couldn't help but laugh quietly. "Steal land? Ma'am, I paid for this place in cash. Every inch of it is mine." The older officer turned back to me. "Look, sir, can you just step onto the sidewalk while we verify this?" I raised an eyebrow. "You want me to leave my own yard?" Karen smirked. "Exactly. Step off our property." That word, our, hit me like a slap. I dealt with plenty of arrogant people before, but this was a whole new level. She really thought she had authority. I didn't move. "Officer, I respect your job," I said calmly, "but you're standing on Lot 47. It's clearly marked in the county database. You can even pull it up right now." The younger officer looked uncomfortable. He took out his tablet, typed for a few seconds, then looked up. His eyes flicked between me and Karen. He's right. Lot 47 belongs to him." Karen's fake smile cracked for a second. "That's impossible. We filed an HOA extension last year. This land should have reverted to us." I tilted my head. Funny, I never got that notice. Maybe because it never existed. The older cop shot her a glance. "Ma'am, we're not here for HOA disputes. If he owns this property, he's within his rights." She crossed her arms, clearly losing ground. "Then I'll call Mr. Benson. He's on the HOA board, and he knows the truth." I watched her storm off, phone in hand, muttering something about community rights. The cops exchanged looks, then nodded at me. "Sorry for the confusion, sir. We'll wait here until she's back, just in case." I forced a polite smile, but inside, I felt that familiar spark, the same one I used to get before every mission. Karen wasn't just bluffing. If she was calling the HOA president, then something bigger was coming. And I wasn't about to let them rewrite my property line. 10 minutes later, a shiny black SUV rolled up, tires crunching over the gravel like it owned the place.
Out stepped Mr. Benson, the HOA president himself, tall, gray suit, fake smile, clipboard in hand. The kind of man who never did a day of hard work, but acted like everyone owed him something. He didn't even greet the officers. He walked straight toward me, adjusting his sunglasses. "Sir," he said coldly, "you violated HOA Code 14B by posting unauthorized signage on community-managed frontage." I stared at him. "Community-managed frontage? You mean my driveway?" He ignored my tone and flipped through his clipboard papers like a courtroom actor. "This land is under pending HOA jurisdiction. You were informed in writing." Karen stood behind him, arms crossed, smirking like she'd already won. "Told you," she whispered loud enough for me to hear. I looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Benson, I never got any notice. And I checked county records this morning. There's no pending jurisdiction." He smiled slightly. "We'll see about that. For now, we'll have to ask you to remove the sign." The officer stepped in. "Hold on, sir. This property's deed is verified. Unless you have a court order, he can keep his sign." Benson didn't even flinch. "Officer, we'll have legal documents ready by tomorrow. For now, consider this man trespassing until our review is complete." Karen clapped her hands softly like it was a performance. "See? Told you he's not supposed to be here." I took a step closer. "You're accusing a homeowner of trespassing on his own land? You realize that's illegal, right?" Benson lowered his voice. "Be careful, Mr. Walker. You're new here. We handle things differently in this neighborhood." The way he said it, calm, smug, threatening, it wasn't about rules. It was about control. Then one of the officers got a radio call and stepped aside to answer it. He came back looking uneasy. Dispatch just confirmed something strange," he said. "There's a duplicate property ID filed under HOA records for this same address." Karen's eyes sparkled. "Exactly! I told you so!" But I knew right then it wasn't a clerical error. Someone had forged documents. And judging by the way Benson smiled, I already knew who. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "All right," I said quietly. "If they want to play paperwork games, I'll show them what real ownership proof looks like." Because they didn't know my secret yet. I wasn't just a homeowner. I used to work in the county registrar's office.
Benson's fake smile lingered as he turned to leave, convinced he'd scared me. Karen followed him like his shadow, tossing a smug look over her shoulder. "Enjoy your last day on our street," she sneered. I waited until their SUV disappeared around the corner before I finally exhaled. The cops, now calmer, gave me a sympathetic look. "Sir, we've seen HOA drama before, but this one's different," the younger one said. I nodded. "Yeah, I've noticed. Thanks for keeping it civil." They drove off, and as the silence settled, I stood there staring at my private property sign, half bent from all the chaos. The sun dipped low, shadows stretching across the yard, and I realized this wasn't over. I went inside, pulled out my old black box from the top shelf of my closet. Inside were stacks of documents, maps, and my old ID badge, County Registrar Office, Land Records Division. I hadn't planned on ever using it again, but Karen and Benson had forced my hand. An hour later, I logged into the public record portal with my old credentials. Everything looked normal at first, until I found it. A newly created subplot ID under my address, dated just 2 weeks ago, labeled Community Access Reserve, HOA Jurisdiction. Someone had slipped it into the system, a fake entry, and only an insider could have done that. I printed everything, timestamps, log trails, and access IDs. Then I saw it, the approval signature. Authorized by B. Benson. My hands tightened around the paper. They weren't just trying to claim my land, they were committing fraud to do it. The next morning, I was at the county office before they opened.
My friend Lisa, still working there, looked up as I walked in. "Walker, I thought you retired from this mess." "It looks like the mess followed me," I said, handing her the file. "Someone's creating fake HOA property records under my name." Her eyes widened. "Oh, this is bad. This ID trail shows admin-level access." "Yeah," I said quietly, "and I know exactly who has that access." By noon, she had verified everything. Fraudulent records, unauthorized access, false extensions, all tied back to Benson. That evening, I stood on my porch again as another car rolled up, this time a sheriff's cruiser. Karen was standing outside her house grinning, thinking they'd come for me again. But the sheriff walked right past me, straight to her. "Ma'am, HOA President Benson and members are under investigation for property fraud. We'll need you to come with us for questioning." Her face drained of color. "What? That's not possible." The sheriff turned to me and nodded slightly. "Thank you for providing the evidence, Mr. Walker. You just helped uncover a whole scam operation." Karen was speechless as they led her away. Benson's name would soon be all over the local news. I looked at my sign again. A little bent, a little weathered, but still standing. And for the first time since I moved here, the street was quiet. I smiled faintly and whispered, "Private property finally means private." Then I walked back inside, closed the door, and hung my county badge by the window, a quiet reminder that sometimes the only way to defend your land is to know the system better than those who tried to steal it. They tried to use fake rules to take my land, but I used real law to take their power.